Independent culture, is there such a thing? Anyway. So the thing with the space was it sort of existed in its own right as a studio, and so my mother used to run it as just like a personal home studio kind of thing.
The spaces evolved beyond what we initially thought because for context, Amrit's a musician, I'm an illustrator. Amrit, as a musician in the indie scene in Delhi, felt that there was a severe lack of jam pads, and the ones that were there were kind of grey and small.
But then I sort of imposed my own idea into it of having a larger collective and a space that caters to artists of many mediums. And so that's how it kind of started off.
So he felt like there was a demand for jam pads in Delhi. So that was where it started, which is why the whole place is soundproofed, acoustically treated, etc. And then, we have a stage and everything. We wanted it to be a nice jam pad. And then I've also wanted to do a bunch of art workshops, and it was just how can we utilize the space to the best of our abilities and the best of what is available to us.
In the 90s, my parents used to sort of host this band within their own living area. Like they would like host parties or like jams or whatever. And I think that really influenced my parents to have a certain kind of very informal patronage of the arts in that way. Like being someone who's just supporting the arts from the outside a little. That's what made it possible for me as well to do something quite similar. In 2023, in October, is when I first started putting programs out there, just like very small scale, very intimate sort of gatherings of like film screenings or workshops. That's when the idea of Mool really came about as well.
We knew that this was going to be a point of conflict between us about what we wanted to name this space. So it's like, okay, what is one thing that we can agree on? And we were like, okay, well, Stella, our dog. So we just ended up calling it Kutta Studios because, we agreed on Stella.
And so my mom and I, we were rummaging through this stuff, and when she found this letter, was sort of like an essay or that my uncle had written on his own work, a series of his work that dealt with themes of fertility primarily and nature. Within that letter, it was written in Hindi, he used the word maulik a lot. Maulik meaning foundational or fundamental. And it turns out that it's a fascinating word. It encapsulates within itself concepts such as the origin of things. That is kind of where the name came from. So Mool.
Similarly with our art workshops, we're trying to do stuff that you can't really do elsewhere. So we are very much niche for a particular community with a particular sort of bent. It's more about a strong knit community rather than numbers. We don't want to draw in large numbers.
I think that's always been an important aspect of the approach we've had to fostering communities, that we're not trying to push people together inorganically. What we're trying to do is providing a space that is ample enough for there to be a natural upbringing of that sort of perspective.
We don't really have a criteria as such about the sort of people we wanted to draw in, just people who were genuinely interested. Like if you're making the effort to come here on a Sunday for like an art workshop, you are committed, you are interested. We just want people who are interested. We've gotten college going kids, we've gotten people in their 40s and 50s. When we had an intro to improv workshop, it was primarily older. Yeah. There was an older crowd, which was interesting.
I think that's what ties everyone at Mool together, is that initial approach to art in itself, as art not just being a force that pushes the boundaries of human thought, but also a force that pushes the boundaries of social dynamics and class dynamics.
I feel like there's a severe lack of opportunities for community building in Delhi. There's a significant number of people out there that want to be challenged and do more interesting creative things, and also build community in a way that feels a little bit more meaningful, because there are limited spaces, I think, or everything feels a little bit too intimidating.
I think there is definitely a push towards alternative arts specifically, going into what used to be niches and exploring them and opening them up into art scenes that are altogether, more altogether easier to approach. These places have really acted as the bedrock of fostering so much community.
There has been a very recent boom. Maybe it's my own bias because I've been investigating independent culture in Delhi more, but there seem to be a lot more venues popping up, a lot more individuals doing their own thing and creating their own studios. I think people are kind of over brands.
And at the same time, the only other alternative is exclusively commercial spaces. Your clubs or your speakeasies or your cafe bars where you can, if you're like a musician, for example, you play your gigs at these kind of locations. But I think that has sort of also been overdone. It has been exhausted. There is definitely an effort, if not a collective one, at least an unconscious one, to move towards an alternative institutional cultural apparatus. But beyond that, I think people really are trying.
And I think a lot more individually led, independent spaces are becoming more appealing. There's more of them popping up.
One of the things that I really like about our space is the fact that it sort of shifts and moves through a very word of mouth sort of aspect. And so artists like to come to us. It remains to be our position to be as open and as accessible as possible.
I guess we're not looking for large numbers. So small, intimate. Yeah.
A lot of the way I shaped this space was in response to what I have found lacking in spaces that already exist for at least my kind of music. Maybe other musicians with different genres and sounds, different experience. But for me, the acoustic treatment, we have 23 acoustic panels all over the space, like those red things behind me. And I wanted to be equipped for a 5-piece band, so I have all the equipment for a 5-piece band, but it's very easily expandable to a bigger set. It can accommodate that.
Eventually, through time, we sort of started making small tweaks in the space, started putting our own sort of ideas into it, and that's when it really started shaping up into what it is.
If someone approaches us and has a very cool idea for the space, we'll say yes. That's the, I think, beauty of it being an independently run space where we can sort of just take on things that seem cool.
So I think that's what is next for us as well, is to move the space beyond something, beyond just a realm that is occupied just for events, and also a realm that is, perpetually occupied, a space that inhabits a line of thinking as much as it inhabits just a venue as well. So yeah, that is kind of where it's going.
I want to see it as a space that is diverse, that you have a number of different things happening.